Dr. Wes Crenshaw's question that's puzzled humankind for centuries. What happened to my sweet little son or daughter when she or he started middle school? All right, fill us in on this mystery, because I know there's a lot of parents out there shaking their heads right now. Yes.
They fled into puberty.
Is that what happened?
It chased them down and it finally caught them. This is a time for kids where they're not only going through a lot of emotional and mood changes, but they're really going through this bridge to adolescence. They go from childhood to adolescence, and it's a really radically new set of norms and expectations they have. And I don't just mean new to them. Culturally, things are really different and new.
Let's talk a little bit more of that. Tell us a little bit more about the new norms that kids will be facing when they reach adolescence.
Well, there are the old traditionals, which is, again, a change in mood. And you've got one, Kim. I bet you've run into the change in mood. And the idea of realignment of social groups. Kids will enter middle school with one social group, and then as interests and behavior diverge, so will the kids. But the one that really is kind of new now in the middle school is how much sexual awareness they have. They are using the internet for good or ill to learn a lot, and they come in 6th and 7th grade to see me. So sophisticated, I kid you not, that 7th graders teach me an awful lot nowadays.
Oh, wow.
And this is a real different trend that parents are struggling to keep caught up with.
So what tips do you have for us parents to kind of help us bridge that?
Well, try to remain calm. That's the
Try
first one.
being the key word.
Yeah, I get more people in my office wanting to talk about their middle schooler not cleaning out the cat box and not filling up the dishwasher than I do about the things that actually matter. Try not to sweat some of those little things and focus all your energy on pro-social behavior. You want to teach kids to treat each other well. I think our week in Mizzou right now is teaching us how poorly people can treat each other on every side of an issue. And this begins in middle school. We really want to teach kids not just to not bully. That's kind of a minimal thing. We want to teach kids how to listen to each other, how to get along well. And parents can reinforce, punish, and reward that kind of behavior just like they do the cat box problem. And more than anything else, the thing that'll keep you sane is understanding your child's personality and emotional style. Too often parents operate out of their emotional style and not understand their kids. And if you can't match that, then all the parenting books in the world aren't going to do you any good, because you're mismatched with your child. And we'll talk a little more about that later.
Can you give us an example of matching an emotional style with your kids?
I can. It comes down to what I'm now calling kids who are the carefree kids versus the careful kids. And you have to parent each differently. And if you're a careful parent, and you have a carefree kid, that may not be a bad match, you know, because you're like overcompensating. But if you get two matches that are carefuls, then they irritate each other to the point that it gets a lot of tears and frustration.
Do all the hormones make their memories go?
Do they have like amnesia?
Yes!
Well, you know, that's the funny thing with memory. It's so convenient to not remember, you don't know. But yeah, they're, you know, in part they have a lot more going on, in fairness, and so you're not as interesting anymore as you used to be. And so they have other things they want to think about and remember, you know, cute dating partners and homework and all of that relationship stuff. So no, they don't care about the things you want them to remember, and you have to help remind them and keep on them.
Thank you so much. If you'd like more information on Dr. Wes, his information is on your screen. Stick around, because he's going to be back to discuss how parents can really understand middle schoolers. And he's going to have some strategies. He talked to us about the different styles of kids there are and the different styles of parenting. We're going to delve more into that and find out how we can best parent the type of kid that we have.
By the way, if you are a family psychologist, Dr. Wes Crenshaw is back with ways to help middle schoolers be socially and academically productive. And Dr. Wes, earlier you said that parenting middle schoolers requires parents to understand and match their child's emotional style. Give us a little bit more detail on what do you mean by that?
So as I was saying, you have kids who are the careful kids and kids who are the carefree or worse, careless kids. And so the carefree kids or let's do the careful ones first. They're the sort of anxious ones, and they are prone to needing a whole lot less structure, a whole lot less incentive. You don't have to pay them for their grades and all of this. Where you get into trouble as parents with them is when you try to hover on them. This is where the helicopter parent actually doesn't work. In a minute we'll talk about where it does. But you really have to be thinking, how do I lower this child's expectations for him or herself? And too often you'll get kind of the anxious, careful parent, and they're just on top of that kid all the time. And this is where you begin to get a lot of anxiety reactions in kids in middle school.
So what's different about parenting than the middle schooler who leans toward the carefree
right
part of the spectrum?
Ideally, we would go in and we would just pick up the kids that match with these parents and move them around, but that's against the law and dumb. So what you instead have to do is modify yourself a little bit. But if you have the carefree child, they match better with the more hovering parent because you have to chase them around and get them to do what they need to do. You need to do more incentives with them, and not just negative incentives. If you will do things like provide a reward or a budget, a salary for grades, and improve their behavior through incentives, they'll often respond really well to that. And likewise, you can give them punishments in small numbers for things that they are not following through on. And they do need more structure and supervision. This is why I said earlier, you have an owner's manual for kids, except every kid needs their own owner's manual. And so if you read the book that says, don't be a helicopter parent, and you've got the carefree kid, you're gonna have all sorts of problems because they tend not to think before they act. And you have to be in there doing harm reduction, basically risk reduction, and helping them better assess risk. Whereas with your careful kids, all they do is sit around and think about risk. Oh my gosh, what am I gonna do wrong the next time? And you need to say to those kids, it's okay, buddy, you're gonna be fine. And imagine how mixed up that gets if the parent is in the same alignment. If you have a carefree parent and a carefree kid, you know, they're like, we don't need school today. Why don't we just go to the parade? Oh wait, everybody went to the parade. But you just get that mismatched style. And so parents, the best thing they can do to figure out a middle schooler and really any child is to think, what's my style, what's the kid's style, and how can we best match to be successful?
Now, what if you have two different kids who are two different styles?
You're just a complicated person.
I know.
No, it happens all the time. And so you'll get, let's say the first one will come through, and you're like, oh, I know how to do this. I hovered, and look, he's got straight A's. It's amazing. And you get the next one, and she is already a kind of an anxious person and cannot figure out why the parent hovers on her. She doesn't need that, and gets angry and resentful, and you get all sorts of mismatch. I actually have that in my home. I've had to overhaul my parenting style for the younger one to be a whole lot less of the let's do this now you parent.
So we just have to fit to them.
Yes, and then one child will then be frustrated with the other because they don't understand why you're too hard on them or not hard enough on them or whatever it happens to be. And you just have to say, you're two different people. What works with one doesn't work with the other, and you're going to need to accept that. That's how you have to handle it. And then if you got like 6 kids and they're all different, just run. Just run away. There's no hope.
Dr. West has 2 different locations. He's in Prairie Village. He's also in Lawrence. You can find him online at dr-west.com.